The Disrupt Education vlog can be found on YouTube. To hear it in podcast form, search Disrupt Education on any of the following podcast platforms: Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Castbox, Overcast, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Spotify, or Stitcher. Welcome to this episode of Disrupt Education. We're here with Connor Sherland from out in Santa Monica, right?
Santa Barbara.
Santa Barbara. Sorry, that's going to mess up people in the Midwest. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Connor.
Yeah, so I'm a singer-songwriter out in Santa Barbara. I've been here for 8 years now, moved out for school from a little desert town down south. South of California, not the actual South. And I graduated in environmental studies. I then worked in tech for 2.5 years, building websites for property managers. And then I left that for the music business so that I could learn the music business. Knew nothing of the music business at all, and sort of jumped in and have been figuring that out for the last 1.5 to 2 years. So in order to flex my creative muscle, I would go home at night and then practice writing songs in the bathroom for hours on end.
So now you have a couple of albums. How many albums do you have?
I have 2, and this is the 3rd one that I'm premiering in 2 days.
What was your high school career like, or even before your high school career like, and then up until now, through college and whatnot?
I didn't want to go to college in the first place.
Right.
So my dad just saying, like, I want more opportunities for you than less, and therefore I want you to do a science because that will afford you more opportunities than less.
Do you use science in or any of the things that you learned up until now in your music business? What kind of things do you use?
Almost none.
Okay, fair enough.
I've always been extremely relational. That's the main way that I understand the world. It's always been hard for me to distinguish trees apart, but when a friend of mine explains a tree, I can associate that tree to that friend, and it just makes sense somehow. So even in environmental studies, the things that meant the most to me were the relationships that I made in the school. So I really, let me just think before I completely denounce my education, because I don't want to denounce my full education.
Right.
I got stuff out of it, but most of it was not from school. Like that was where, like in Math 3, like Math 3A, which is the calculus series in UCSB, what I learned is if I really apply myself to something that I have no skills in and I actually hate, but like really apply myself and put in way more hours than everybody else, I can get A's. And that to me was a lesson in persistence and a lesson in grit, which was really good. I also got to take a class in a few classes in Old Testament Hebrew Bible, which was really important for me, just learning more about the Old Testament of the Bible and how important it is to define words accurately and how hard it is to create a narrow definition for a word. So that was incredibly important. I got to learn about rivers. Again, this doesn't
right.
it doesn't necessarily apply to the business, but they are things that I really took to heart. Like I took a class on rivers and understanding how often places flood and how you can tell the health of a river based on what the water looks like while it's flowing through it. And again, how it applies to business is really it's a real stretch.
Sure. If you were to go back into high school and could change how that system looks, what would you change?
I would de-incentivize cheating as much as possible. I think the amount of cheating in high school is both awesome and terrifying at the same time, because in college, I then understood how hard it was to cheat in college. And then that's when I started taking education seriously, because it was going to be a lot harder and the consequences were no joke it was, you're going to lose lots and lots of money. You're not going to be welcome back. It's going to be really hard to get to where you are right now if you get caught cheating. Mm-hmm. So it's honestly better for you in college to not cheat.
Right.
High school, I don't have that same argument for high school. Mm-hmm. Because the worst thing that can happen to you is you get expelled and switch districts. You can still get a high school degree.
Right.
And that's totally fine. You would just go cheat somewhere else. So I'm not and the financial consequences of that are not super severe. Mm-hmm. Granted, time is lost, etc.
Sure.
But I had one teacher, Mrs. Nichter, if you're watching, shout out, made it really, really hard to cheat on tests. She would basically place us into little voting booths on our desks, and they would be entirely around us, and she would always say, like, if you need to think, do not look around, I need you to look up at the ceiling. That is the only place you're allowed to move your eyes to think. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you stay in your little bubble and you do this test. And that, to me, was really good. Mm-hmm. But then you have to deal with the problem of, how do I not just binge the information, dump it onto a test, and then forget it the next day?
Right.
So what can I do to actually make those lessons play out? And that I still don't know, because there is something to be said about learning about how our world works. It's not important for me to know the organelles inside of a plant cell. But it is. I just think that's important human knowledge. Mm-hmm. And I can't justify that. I can't justify why that's important. Mm-hmm. But I just think you should know how the world is made.
Right.
But I think you also need to know how the world works practically. And I was, like, when you sent me that list of questions, I was thinking about the class work experience.
Right.
And I was like, well, that's a joke, as if, like, all work could be classified into one experience, which then could be classified in, like, all right, we're going to teach you guys how to send a cover letter, which I don't see much of the value of a cover letter anymore. Mm-hmm. So that didn't really serve me. And every time I needed to make a cover letter, I would Google how to make a cover letter, or I would ask my friends how to make a cover letter. So, like, if I was to redesign, I would force kids to take that class, work experience, mm-hmm. and I would make that class be something actually challenging, mm-hmm. and something that's a lesson learned no matter what. Something like, I need all of you to go out and make $50. Everyone is going to start out with $10. That's provided by the class, and you need to make $50. And that $40 profit, you can do whatever you want with it. Congrats. But, like, that is the lesson. And you're going to do a report in 3 months on how you moved from $10 to $50. And then for the next 3 months, the goal can be like, with that $40, I'm going to now challenge you to make $100. And, like, you need to, like, show how you can make money, which is hard.
Yeah, right?
It's really hard, but people need to learn how to do it. And a lot of kids would start selling candy, but that's fine. Yeah. then they would learn the lesson, and they would learn, like, what happens when an entire class, that every kid, their first thought is, I'm going to sell candy. It's like, well, then maybe I should sell floss between class, because every kid's eating candy.
Right.
Or mints or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they would need to learn how to adjust, and they would need to know what it's like to lose that amount of money and have to write a report about it and explain it to people. Like, really, I just lost the money, and have to have that loser mark on their face. And then be able to defend that to the class of, like, this is what I learned, and if I were to do it differently, I would do this. Like, there needs to be real life experiments going on, because mm-hmm. that's what the rest of your life is anyway.
Yeah, right.
So I would have appreciated something like that, something that I could actually fail and then have to write about failing.
That's very interesting. I like that concept of actually, you know, it's a growth mindset, literally, is what you put there, putting that out there. So tell us a little bit about your music career. What's next for you? Where do people find you? How can people listen to your stuff?
Yeah, if they want to listen to my stuff, they can go to ConnerChurlin.com, CONNER, share like the singer, land like the ground.com. Or, as long as you can spell my last name, you can find me on everything: Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Pandora. Probably not Pandora.
Not yet.
Not yet. Not yet. Yeah, so as long as you can spell Shareland, my music will pop up. And this recent album is called The Choices of John Still. It's a concept album following this character and his choices. Mm-hmm. And you get to meet different people in his life. It's a little 6-song EP.
Nice. What's next after this album drops? What's next for Connor?
After this album drops, I'm going to continue to try and get press for it, which is just a lot of cold calls, cold emails. And then after that, I'm going to, I typically tour every June, and I typically try to put out an album like immediately before or immediately after that tour. So it'll just be back on the cycle. I mean, when you're writing 40 songs for an album, it means that you're constantly having to write songs to keep up. So I'm probably just going to go right back to writing a ton of songs and start thinking about, like, I already have an idea about what the next EP is, mm-hmm. and I really want to have a ton of songs so that really I can pare it down to, again, like a really cohesive story that I can really believe in.
Fantastic. Last question. For if you had a 17-year-old who wants to get into the music business, what do you tell them?
I would say, are you sure? And give. There's a small book called Letters to a Young Poet by Raina Maria Rilke, and at the start there's this little kid, and he's asking, like, I want to be a writer. What can I do to be a writer? And the first piece of advice is you need to ask yourself the question, must I write? And if the answer is no, then choose anything else. Choose anything else and do it on the side, because that will make a good life for you. But if the answer is yes, then you have to do whatever it takes to make that happen in your life. So you, whether it's like punting leisure and like getting rid of some of the leisure in your life so that you can spend more time writing and being alone to do that, but being a creative person, so there's like the music industry and then there's like the creative person. I happen to be both at the moment.
Yeah.
But when you're the creative person, there's so many like just internal mind games that you're going to have to go through, of locking yourself into a room so that you can write this song, and then you'll play it to people who don't care at all, or maybe they just don't get it, and then you start to question, am I bad or are they bad? Mm-hmm. Always subjective to a point. and then there's the business side of like just consistent, like when you do have a product that is good, objectively good, and then you just start shopping it out to people, do you have the grit to take 50 no's for 2 yeses? And that is a really hard thing, because if 50 people came up to you a day telling you that you suck, and then 2 people came up and told you, I kind of like you,
yeah,
you would just think that you suck. Mm-hmm. So you have to have some sort of internal compass that can say, I believe in what I'm doing, I believe in where I'm going, so no one can stop me.
Fantastic. That's great advice. Got to take some punches, man.
Some big ones.
A lot. Connor, appreciate you being here with us on Disrupt Education. We'll look for the next album coming out, and we wish you well, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much. Talk to you soon.